Geordie Journo's back at the Newcastle United Media Centre at Whitley Park, where myself and Jordan have just been speaking to Eddie Howe. Then Liam turned up. So good to see you, Liam.
I did.
For your debut here at the Newcastle Media Centre. What are your first impressions?
Yeah, it's...
Or is that a hospital pass?
A little bit. It's very familiar, is what I would say.
Okay.
Been to many a 21s game here, or under 18s game, and it doesn't look to be much has changed. It's that fair to say?
Yes.
But I'm not here off the cuff, am I?
No. Pre-organised, pre-planned. Big announcement to come as well at the end of the video.
Yeah, we have. So do hang on to the end of this video because there is a massive Geordie Journo's announcement coming. But first of all, I'm going to let these two guys really take control of this one, as you usually do on a Friday, because you guys have just been in speaking to Eddie Howe. What do you say, Dom?
Well, do you want to start on injuries, where we always do? Because we've got points we want to make later in the video that we'll probably base this video around. But injuries, Sven Botman back in full training, still a few weeks away.
Yeah. But good signs with him. New year, you suspect. And then a few tired bodies from Wednesday night.
Yeah, the players he highlighted were a little bit concerning, but you'd imagine all three would be fine for the weekend.
Anthony Gordon, Isak and Tonali. Tonali had cramp. Isak was tired. Anthony Gordon was fatigued. All mean the same thing with different words. So
I read that. Do you think he's just sort of pulling the wool a little bit? Do you think they'll all be fine, or do you think he is actually going to make changes this weekend?
I don't know how he would. I think it's that consistency in selection.
Such a good performance on Wednesday night, albeit against a different team in Brentford on Saturday, and away from home against a side who are scoring for fun really and have a really good home record. But yeah, I think it was so functional from Newcastle for the most part in an attacking sense and in a midfield sense that I just wouldn't necessarily change anything. If I was to change anything, it would maybe be the right wing, which has always been a problem area, but I thought Jacob Murphy came to the side and performed a very functional role.
And he'll be one of the fresher ones as well because he went off a little bit earlier, didn't he? So I don't think he'd want to make changes in the ideal world unless he absolutely has to, but I think professional footballers, I think they'll be absolutely fine to go again on Saturday.
I thought so too when I saw. Obviously I haven't watched it, but I did see you guys and the bits that you've put out on your various websites. I thought, realistically, is it not one of those games where he gives the starting team an hour and then sees where people are at? If Anthony Gordon is flagging, if Alexander Isak is flagging, you turn to Wilson, you turn to Barnes. You've got players there to freshen it up. You've got Longstaff to do the switch around. This time it's Tonali off at 60 and Longstaff on rather than the other way around. So I thought that when I seen the injury news and things like that, I thought it just, realistically, is he going to make too many changes to a team that's just put a performance in like that when you've been searching for some kind of searching for answers in your first team and you seem to have looked to have maybe found one or two, when you're searching for some kind of performance and continuity, and I just don't think it makes any sense to change things around, and for me I'd be very surprised if he did. Yeah,
in the past two games, which gets on to Jordan's question and then my follow-up question, we've seen the best of Sandro Tonali, I think. Certainly since his debut,
he's been much better.
Playing in that number 6 role, he seems to have found a bit of a home, and I'd say over the past two games, as an aggregate, he's probably been Newcastle's best player.
Yeah, I think he was.
I know what you're saying. Yeah,
he was a standout against Palace, wasn't he? Although Palace was a very, very low standard, but I thought he was ball down doing the best player that day, and I thought in midweek as well. Again, I thought he was really good off the ball again. He's out of possession stuff has really pleased me because we know he's got all this technical ability, these nice 1-2 passes. But I think early on the season we had a great few. I can't remember what game it was, but it was Sandro Tonali playing the right hand side of the midfield field, right in front of the dugout, and he had Kieran Trippier, and I think it was, I can't remember who it was, but we were essentially talking Tonali for a game. It didn't quite look like he knew the role. Obviously he's moved back inside, or moved into the number 6 role, and I think when you put it there, I think he's looked more at home. And I think that probably the last two games, the way I put it, was maybe felt like a little bit of a breakthrough for Sandro Tonali in terms of being consistency in the start 11. But Eddie Howe didn't agree with
you are wrong, Jordan.
Yeah, he didn't agree.
He didn't say that.
He said I wouldn't put it that way. He said I think he's been really good this season. He's picked out his performances against Chelsea in the Cup, Nottingham Forest as a game changer. He called it when he came off the bench, and
he was good
Newcastle.
But that doesn't make sense. So if that was the case, and he's been brilliant, why haven't you been starting him?
Yeah.
Well, that
Would
was
be the question that I can imagine every single person in the comments when they hear that will be going, but why didn't you start him?
well. I followed that up with why is it taking so long to
did you?
to function?
It's like we've planned this
Yeah.
video.
me and Dom two times.
This
Anyhow,
is
this one.
fortunately
This is the chemistry, isn't it? This is the chemistry.
We were Bruno and Tonali, me and Jordan. Or what?
Well, who am I then? The battering ram by Joel didn't.
But yeah, I followed that up with why is it taking so long? There's obvious reasons, because Sandro Tonali's been banned for 10 months, but again, he's been training for 10 months. So how is it taking so long to find a functional role for Sandro Tonali in the side and to use him effectively? And Eddie Howe's reasoning was, well, Bruno is one of the best number 6s in the Premier League, which is a fair enough point, but then there's more than one midfielder. You pick 3 midfielders. How is he not being able to really make that work? And basically he just said, we've changed it up, it's worked, but there's no reason why that won't change again.
So Dom, again, it's one of those that, like, if he's answering you by saying, I know you're paraphrasing, it's always difficult when you thinking about to say exactly what manager said and what they didn't. But if the paraphrasing of was, we couldn't pick him because Bruno's one of the best number 6s.
He did ask specifically on number 6
Yeah.
role.
But he's all right. Okay, I was going to say he
Yeah.
signed him. So
As
you
a-
wouldn't have
as a
signed him
six.
as a Bruno sort of replacement. Bruno, it didn't make sense. None of that theory ever made sense to
Yeah,
me.
no.
So I think that's him sort of skirting around the real fact here, is that I don't think he's trusted Tonali to play games, or maybe it's more a case of he's trusted other players to play those roles up to now.
Yeah.
And the way I've seen the last couple of games is Tonali have been given the chance, which I think for the first time he's really, really grasped.
Yeah.
He's burst the doors through in the last 2 performances. Look, he was the best of a bad bunch, him and Dan Burn down at Palace.
Yeah.
He couldn't make much of the rest of the team, so I was reluctant to really jump to any major conclusions, but I was really happy with what I saw from him in that game. Then I thought there was even more signs. I think it was within 20 minutes he tried to play one pass where it was almost like he didn't look, he just knew that Isak or Gordon would be on the shoulder, and it didn't work out, and he played over the top. And I remember saying to you guys, that's the forward passing Sandro Tonali that turned up at St James's Park for his debut against Aston Villa. That's the one who has that in his lockdown, but hadn't really seen any of that, being brutally honest.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a good sign. But then his speed, his ability to, his recovery runs, I really like what I saw. I still think his defensive game isn't top notch, but the more that these players play together, then he'll get a chance to improve that. And he's obviously a very, very good player. That's never ever been in doubt. My doubt has only ever been when it's to label them. A lot of people label them world class, etc., and he has to be starting. I hadn't yet seen that in a black and white shirt. Now is the time. It has to be the time where we see a 10-game run or an 8-game run or some kind of goal. You've got to give the lad an opportunity to really stamp his mark on this team, and I think only then will we see how good Sandro Tonali can be for Newcastle United. I think so far we've seen flashes, and like I say, there was building blocks in Palace, and I thought there was loads more against Liverpool. We need to see a lot more of that. We need to see a lot more of that moving forward, and Howe has to trust him. Has to trust him to play this weekend, then next week, then the week after, and I think only then, probably after Christmas, can we make a fair judgment and say, wow, this lad's brilliant, or I'm not sure, or I'm still not sure where this lad fits.
Yeah. So yeah, we didn't think Eddie Howe liked either of our questions about Sandro Tonali. He was a bit spiky.
He batted away the first one before I spoke to Tonali, and I don't necessarily agree with this point, but I asked if there was a motivation issue between playing against the Brentford and playing against the Liverpool or Manchester City, and he said he wanted to make it absolutely clear that it was not a motivational thing or a lack of desire. It was
the right
more
question.
about how they've carried, or they've tried to carry a tactical plan out, and it hasn't quite worked. So that, which I agree with Eddie Howe, the answer he gave us, but I thought it was a chance for him to maybe put the onus on his players, saying you need to be better, you need to be more motivated, but he batted that away.
He did revisit that subject slightly in terms of players, because he was asked about, do these world-class players, the difference between world-class players and very good Premier League players is world-class players do it against Brentford, against Liverpool, week in, week out, whereas good Premier League players, which Newcastle definitely have, can turn up for certain games but then lack that consistency. And Eddie Howe, he did put the onus on the players in some regard when answering those questions.
But listening to what you guys have asked, like the direction of the questions, you've got to think of why Eddie Howe would be spiky. In many ways, they are the right questions to ask, and it's almost, even in a week where it's been really positive, it still is a week where it's the only opportunity that fans out there and you guys, anybody gets the opportunity to speak to Eddie Howe and hold him to account. But you've got to say that it would be seen in his eyes when he takes those questions as indirect criticism, because effectively you're saying, why the hell haven't you picked Sandro Tonali earlier?
Yeah.
and you are sorry, and then you're saying.
You've been crap. You're not playing very well against the teams lower down the table.
Have you and your players got a motivation problem?
Yeah.
So again, I'm paraphrasing your questions. He would not have asked it like that, but really, you've got to think when he's on the other side of that, taking that question. That's how he would say it.
I wasn't surprised by Eddie Howe's response to the question. I followed it up. Unrelated question, but I said, because Eddie Howe was asked generally about transfers and potentially having to sell players to bring players in, and I just said Brentford are a perfect example of losing a key player in Ivan Toney and arguably progressing. They're one of the best attacking outlets in the Premier League this season. 27 goals I think they've scored, more than almost double what Newcastle
after losing
have
Ivan Toney as well.
After losing Ivan Toney, exactly. So I said, are they a good example? And Eddie Howe just said, in order to evolve, teams do need to sell and need to find ways to adapt to losing players, and sometimes it's not always a bad thing.
No, I think we've seen numerous clubs have gone through successful, unsuccessful regenerations. Tottenham have probably done every way possible. They've always sold players and then bought really badly or bought decent and regenerated.
Then it's finally clicked when you probably hadn't expected it to.
Yeah.
With Spurs.
Yeah, the one you thought was unsellable, they've went and sold and look a better team for selling them, largely. I know.
I was going to say, if you ask Spurs fans, might give you a different answer.
No, I think they are. I think they're a much better team to watch.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
Eddie Howe was asked if Newcastle were a bit, the word wasn't put to him exactly, were a bit Spursy.
Who asked that?
Friend of the channel.
Did he?
He didn't use the word Spursy, but it was implied, because Spurs, there's a lot of mirroring in the performances where Spurs have battered good teams lost to teams that expect to beat. There is comparisons to be made there.
I mean, there's no surprise. Like, I think we all really know this. I think Newcastle fans take the mick out of Tottenham, but there are a lot of comparisons in that respect.
It's just not an easy word to say.
It's just not nice. We just don't like it.
I would always say I think Tottenham Hotspur have got a weaker underbelly than Newcastle United.
I don't think they have.
You know, I reckon.
No, I've always thought. Look, it's just my opinion. You that's your opinion.
No, I know.
My opinion has always been pretty aligned. Like this season, Newcastle can go and beat them 5-0 at home, and then Tottenham can smash Newcastle 5-0 at their place. Both teams are a bit of a soft touch at times, traditionally.
Yeah.
West Ham have got that in them. There's a few clubs like it. It's not like just a Newcastle and Spurs thing, but I think there are similarities. They're not exactly the same, but there are.
Spurs is probably slightly displaced, disingenuous title as a Big Six club that probably makes it more of a target, whereas Newcastle they've been one of the best teams in the Premier League in the past, but they're definitely considered just below that Big Six.
Well, Liverpool would have to do a Newcastle this year to not win the league title. So that just sort of tells you, that Newcastle got it in them as well.
I'm glad this video's turned into a 2.5 Tottenham Hotspur.
Anything else? Any other business? There would have been plenty more to talk about, was there? There wasn't.
No, they've started to. It's a very clear 30-minute sort of cut on the press conference. Soft cap.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so
keeping it very tight.
Keeps it tight. Keeps us really having to think of our questions. I only had one question in the last press conference. Fortunately, got two today.
Woo!
Yes. Use them both really well. So yeah, we've seen fewer questions asked in the press conference. Some people don't.
I think a lot of the questions today were aimed in the same direction. Where look, you could perform well against Liverpool, but can you go and do with the Brentford? And I think that's what people are trying to get at idea. Asking it in a different way.
It is the theme, though, isn't it? I think that's what most people are talking about. Like we talked about in our last video. If you haven't seen it, do check it out. Where we talked about the idea that not a massive amount was learned from the team.
No.
I think the only thing that I learned was that you could see from the way the players really put it in that there doesn't really seem to be any major problems in the squad. When you see things aren't quite right, you do have to analyse a lot of things, and it doesn't look like. I thought there was a real togetherness. I thought they were playing for the fans, playing for the badge, playing for their teammates. I mean, Anthony Gordon had a little bit of a fit when he went off. He was not a happy lad when he got taken off. But he was, and it was the right change. It was the right change. I thought Anthony Gordon was tireless, but I also thought at 70 minutes he stopped helping Lewis Hall in any way, shape or form, and I think that partly contributed to what happened. As good as he was in an attacking sense, defensively I thought he wasn't, and he needs to maybe understand that a little bit. That you might only have the level he plays at, the speed, he has to recharge the batteries. You see him, he goes on huge bursts, then has to recharge. He needs that, and he seems to only have about 70 minutes of that kind of level in him. He can come again, but it's sporadic, and he didn't come back as much. It's not a criticism of just the player that he is. And the manager recognised that and took him off. Yeah,
just on Anthony Gordon, the press conference almost nearly completely derailed on a question about Anthony Gordon and his celebration after the game. Eddie Howe was asked about it. He said, I don't know what you're talking about, to the journalist who asked it, who then had to
do
the celebration.
It's a shame the video doesn't look the other way as well.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So
who had to do it?
Have a guess.
Was it Craig?
No. Luke Edwards.
Luke Edwards, alright.
So I'm sure Eddie enjoyed.
I'm nodding here because a friend of the channel, Craig Hope, is just off screen here, preparing himself for his own video. I'm sure you guys will watch as well.
So yeah, I'm sure Eddie enjoyed making Luke do that. But questioned what he thought of that celebration, and Eddie basically said he just wants to. If Anthony Gordon's doing that celebration every week, it's a good thing because it means he's scoring. But what did you make of that celebration? I think it's just a response to the criticism he's been fairly getting, in my opinion. I don't think any of the criticism Anthony Gordon's got this season has been particularly unfair, and it was just good to see him back amongst the goals, playing what I thought was at his best.
I've always thought the criticism, like I say, I think it's fair, but my opinion on it has always been, I can often find sometimes it gets a bit misguided. I've said it numerous times on these videos, when it might be the struggles of Bruno at times, it might be the struggles of Isak, and I think Gordon almost comes into a similar category. That less so, he's got less of a body of work, he's got one season behind him, whereas Bruno and Isak have got a couple. But you say class is permanent, form is temporary, class is permanent. And I think almost if you start pointing the finger at the very best in the team, even if they're slightly underperforming, they're probably still performing at a better level than players elsewhere in the team. And it isn't their fault that they're the only flashes of real quality that's been brought in 5, 6, 7 transfer windows since Newcastle United were handed a takeover that hasn't quite developed in the way everybody hoped it would, because of no fault of their own, effectively.
I think it's really easy to look at the Anthony Gordon celebration and say that it was maybe aimed at the Liverpool interest, when there's obviously a lot of talk around that, but maybe it was actually aimed at fan criticism, because I think after Palace, or even the games before that where Anthony Gordon didn't look at the levels, he did get criticised by supporters. So maybe was it a response to them? Isak's celebration was a little bit interesting as well.
It was.
So he was like
get out sort of thing, wasn't it?
He was getting a bit of criticism, maybe not from fans, but there was a bit of criticism in the media from some outlets.
Bruno just did it on Instagram.
And Bruno
potentially,
cryptically, but it could have been.
We don't know.
But maybe that was just their response of saying, we're good players.
But we know you can turn up against Liverpool. Like, that was not a surprise.
So the challenge, you're right, Dom. The challenge is now go and do it on Saturday again. Go again.
We've got to.
Aye. I had a question planned for Eddie, but realised it was actually a terrible question. But it's a good. It's a good stat.
Right.
What could Eddie have said to this?
You weren't going to go full Brendan Rodgers press conference, were you?
No, but it did.
If anybody hasn't seen that, do check that out. It is incredible.
It did remind me of that slightly. But yeah, Newcastle had 5 different scorers against Brentford last season. They've had 5 different scorers in their opening 14 games in the Premier League this season. It's the lowest of any side, and I thought that was a really interesting stat. But how do you word a question, Eddie Howe, in which you give a productive answer? I go, do you read anything into that? Are you concerned by that? But what Newcastle do need to do is start finding goals.
Do you know what he would have said?
He said, yeah, well...
He would have went, no.
Well, that's why I didn't ask it, so...
a Geordie Journo's exclusive stat. Yes. For you guys watching.
Exactly. I thought it was a really interesting stat.
I'm really proud of you today. because you're rolling back the years. You used to be the stat man. I used to laud you on Twitter for being the stat man. You seem to have left those days behind you. You've developed as a player.
He's no longer
You've changed.
He's no longer Rick Eatman. That's the problem.
He's adapted his role.
He's been hanging around with us for too long. We've changed him.
I'm just a.
You were really to the point, full of your stats, full of your facts. We're just wafflers.
I've become a waffler, I think.
It rubs off. I'm sure you can shake it again, Dom.
I mean, yeah, I could have brought that back this morning.
Yeah.
I brought it back last week to Eddie Howe, actually, that Newcastle never won a game without Bruno.
Yeah.
Which he didn't enjoy either, so I don't think
He doesn't like us.
we're flavours of the month with Eddie Howe at the moment.
Anyway.
Not those two again.
Knackers.
It is. Right, I think that's probably about it, isn't it? We'll probably
Yeah,
wrap it
that's
up
it
from
from
there. But you'll know it's not about wrapping up as a track decides to roll in.
Rolling in
Apologies
the
if
big
you-
news.
This is, here it comes, the big news, the big Geordie Journos news. Right, what I want to say is that obviously it's been a big journey with the Geordie Journos. We've been on this year and a half now, nationally recognised in an awards, produced hundreds of videos, thousands of comments, millions of views. It's been
Wow.
Yeah? Ours?
stats.
Watched ours?
Stats. That was stats.
That's stats, eh?
Millions of views?
That was the easiest stats ever. That was like waffling stats, wasn't it? That was just rolling off the tongue. No,
Very good.
And we've enjoyed it too. We've enjoyed all of the conversation with you guys, and we're not going anywhere. We're going to continue doing this. And a sign that we're not going anywhere is that the big news is we've got a new sponsor on board. I'd like to welcome Mitigate. I'm sure it's on the screen now. Keep it on the screen for a little bit. Mitigate, the new sponsors of Geordie Journals. I do want to read out what Mitigate are to give you guys a little bit of an understanding about the people who are coming on board with the Geordie Journals. Mitigate transforms workplace mental health, mitigating legal risks, reducing absenteeism and boosting productivity, delivering up to £9 ROI per pound invested. Book your free demo today. It is on the screen now. Do get involved. All of the details that you'll need to get in touch with Mitigate will also be below, as they are with Four Rivers Financial Planning 2. Right. That's the big news. It's massive for us, isn't it, though, to be kind of developing as a channel and moving on. Big thanks from all of us guys here to Mitigate for getting involved with the channel. Fantastic news. Let's hope for some more tomorrow. We'll all be at Brentford.
Yep. Another long day.
I'm really not looking forward to that early drive, I've got to say. I was exhausted last week. This is like first world problem, isn't it? Ooh, you get a free ticket for the match. Ooh, you've got to drive early.
It was a 22-hour day behind the wheel.
It was.
Not just one person
Not
behind the wheel for
non-stop.
22 hours.
No.
It was split between four of us
Yeah.
in the end. But it is a very, very long day. And I was the same. I didn't get up till 11 o'clock on Sunday
Yeah.
morning.
Boo.
Yes. Anyway, sorry.
Hey, you were up
sorry.
quite early.
I was.
Take the dog out. Yeah. Right. That's it from your Geordie Journos. The sun comes out here
And that's
at Whitley
blinding,
Park.
mate.
It's actually beautiful, that, just on your back of your neck. I wasn't sure if you would feel it with this like ferret around
No. I was looking at Don. I can see the sun on Don, but there's no sun on me. I'm not shining today.
I was just thinking.
I'm not shining
Right.
today.
My ever-increasing forehead is shining here. gleaming in
Oh,
the
the sun,
air.
actually.
I was just thinking, me and Jordan, these Friday videos, we usually cut them nice and short. There's no waffle at the end. You turn up and we're back to classic Geordie Jones.
I know, I'm sorry.
No, I wouldn't apologise. It's what the people want sometimes.
Yeah, they do. I think it breaks it up. Well, like I like your Friday videos. I think your Friday videos are the best videos that we do on the channel, because I think it is. It's like, what did he say? What does it mean? What did you ask? What questions did you
Why?
ask? And why? And I think it gives people that little explanation, because they might have watched the video. They get a little bit more of the context from you guys as well.
Exactly.
Anyway, like, comment, share, subscribe for all your Geordie Journos content. Of course, Mitigate details below for Rivers 2. And there is a shop as well if you want to get involved. There's also super thanks.
Yeah.
Can you do super thanks? Can't do super thanks as Christmas, but you can definitely do the shop as Christmas. And we will see you tomorrow at Brentford. I will be doing a live. Do watch out for that live after the game. Normally tends to be when the music ends, about 20 minutes after the game. So do come in if you love this sort of thing and get involved in the conversation. I'll be there, ready for a chat with you guys, and then the three of us will be doing a bit more of a deeper analysis, probably a couple hours after that. Right, from Whitley Park, it's goodbye from the Geordie Journals.